Imagine living your normal life while the air around you is slowly killing you. No smell, no warning, no idea anything is wrong. That's exactly what happened in April 1986 during the Chernobyl disaster. And the worst part, the people in charge knew something was wrong and still didn't tell anyone. Chernobyl wasn't just a nuclear accident. It was a perfect storm of bad design, human error, and a system built to hide its own failures. But what makes this story so disturbing is how long it took for the truth to come out, because the explosion, that was just the beginning. About 3 kilometers from the reactor sat a city called Pripyat. It was young, modern, full of life. Nearly 50,000 people lived there, many of them families. There were schools, parks, even an amusement park that was supposed to open just days after the accident. And almost everyone living there worked at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. To them, nuclear energy wasn't dangerous, it was progress. On April 25th, 1986, engineers prepared for a routine safety test. The goal was simple. If the plant lost power, could the reactor keep running long enough to safely shut down? It had been tested before, but this time, things didn't go according to plan. The test was delayed, the reactor's power dropped too low, and instead of stopping, they tried to fix it, to raise power. Backup. Operators made a series of decisions that, on their own, didn't seem catastrophic, but together, they created a disaster waiting to happen. They disabled safety systems, they pushed the reactor into unstable conditions, and they ignored warning signs that should have stopped everything. Inside Reactor 4A, dangerous chain reaction was building. At exactly 1:23 a.m. on April 26th, they pressed the emergency shutdown button. It should have saved the reactor. Instead, it triggered the explosion. 2 massive blasts ripped through the building. The reactor lid hundreds of tons was blown apart, and the core was exposed directly to the open air. This wasn't like a normal explosion. It released radioactive materials like iodine-131 cesium-137 into the atmosphere. And these didn't just stay at the plant. They spread across Ukraine, Belarus, and much of Europe. In fact, radiation from Chernobyl was eventually detected as far away as Scandinavia. Within minutes, firefighters arrived. They had no idea what they were dealing with. No radiation suits, no proper equipment, just hoses and courage. They climbed onto the roof, walking over radioactive debris. Some of them picked up pieces of graphite with their bare hands. Within hours, many began to feel sick, nausea, dizziness, burns that didn't make sense. This was acute radiation sickness, and for many of them, it was already too late. Inside the control room, disbelief turned into denial. The idea that a reactor could explode like this was unthinkable. So instead of accepting reality, they tried to maintain control. They continued pumping water into a reactor that no longer existed. They delayed evacuation. They downplayed the danger. And outside, life continued as normal. In Pripyat, people woke up the next morning like any other day. Children went outside. Families went about their routines. Some even stood on bridges to watch the fire at the plant, not realizing they were being exposed to lethal radiation. Later, that spot would become known as the Bridge of Death. It took nearly 36 hours before officials finally decided to evacuate the city. Buses arrived. People were told to pack lightly just essentials. They were told they'd be gone for a few days. They never came back. Pripyat became a ghost city overnight. At first, the Soviet government tried to keep everything quiet. No public warnings, no immediate international alerts. But they couldn't hide it for long. At a nuclear plant in Sweden, workers detected unusual radiation levels. That's when the world began to realize something major had happened. Only then did the Soviet Union admit the truth. Thousands of workers later called liquidators were sent in to contain the disaster. They shoveled radioactive debris. They built a concrete structure over the reactor. Many of them were exposed to extreme radiation levels, and while they helped prevent an even larger catastrophe, the cost was enormous. Radiation doesn't just disappear, it lingers. It affects. Soil, water, and human health cases of thyroid cancer increased dramatically, especially in children. Entire regions became uninhabitable. And even today, parts of the area remain unsafe. Around the plant, a 30-kilometer exclusion zone was created. It still exists today. Inside it, nature has taken over. Buildings are crumbling. Forests have grown over roads. Wild animals roam freely. It's one of the strangest places on Earth, a mix of abandonment and recovery. Chernobyl wasn't just an accident. It was the result of deeper problems. A flawed reactor design, lack of safety culture, and a system that prioritized secrecy over truth. If any one of those had been different, this might not have happened. Today, Chernobyl stands as a warning, not just about nuclear power, but about what happens when people ignore risks, silence warnings, and hide the truth. Because the most dangerous part of Chernobyl wasn't the explosion. It was everything that led up to it. And the scariest part? It only took one night to change everything.